Yeah, yeah, it's almost like bringing the love back again that's supposed to have left or something.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things with divorce that I try to impart, when you go through any kind of life transition or change, right, that's significant or traumatizing, right? It's not doesn't always have to be divorce. But when you go through that, a lot of times it really takes a toll on your self-esteem, on the way you view yourself, right? The self-talk, the messages that we're giving to ourselves. So really that first line of defense of love is really about loving, learning to love yourself and focus on yourself because, we can't really give what we don't have. And we need to replenish a lot of that self-kindness and care so that, we can eventually, move forward and be able to share that. Especially if you have children, you want to be able to be there for them in spite of all the turmoil. And if you're not getting enough of that love and self care for yourself, it's very hard to give it, and help them through this difficult process.
Yeah, and so many times it makes you feel a lot better if the intellectual mind knows what to do and has busy work to take care of, then the emotions kind of take care of themselves a little bit when you're productive and involved in something that's growing and building rather than getting sucked into the negativity.
Yeah, and it's really funny that you say that, Carl, because so many times during a very high emotional state, any emotional state that something we go through, those lines get very blurred. Your intellect gets very influenced by your emotion and so that's where a coach is very helpful because they someone who is there to see it a little more objectively but also can empathize with what you're going through is able to allow that clarity to come through and express. I tell all my clients one of the most important things that you need to do is you also need to be with the kindness of yourself. You need to really acknowledge, like, not taking bait or not falling into negativity doesn't mean you're not acknowledging what's happening. You're not burying it. You're not pushing it down. You're acknowledging it. And sometimes with the acknowledgement of what's really behind what's triggering you, once you kind of, get in touch with that, that can sort of release it and allow you to, let go of it and again, keep your eye on what the end result is. And, people need that during those times of transition.
Nice. Awesome. That's great. So, if someone wants to find out more and get in touch with you, where's the best place to find you these days?
So the best place is to go to my website, and my website is hittingtherestartbutton.com. And through my website, obviously you can, learn more about me and what I do. Um, but more importantly, if you want to set up a meeting with me, you can do that through the website, and you could set up I offer free consultations, free strategy calls, to figure out what you might need, what's right, if we're a fit together. Yeah. And you can also go on my website because I have a downloadable little booklet, which is yeah, which is called the 7 point blueprint for living a high vibe life. And that's for anyone, whether you're going through divorce or any kind of transition or just trying to, up level your life and live a higher vibrational life.
All right. Great. Great. Thanks for joining me today. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Define Your Purpose. And joining me today is Elisa Valentino, and she's out of West Hampstead, New York. And She is an expert on human relations after many trials as a divorce coach. So, welcome, Alyssa. Thanks so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Oh, Karl, thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Great. I wonder how you got into this divorce coaching and all. What got you started?
Yeah, and I don't know if people grow up thinking I'll be a divorce coach one day, but what happened to me was my background was in business, marketing, sales, strategic branding, and I had done that for, a couple of decades before I got married. And then I became a stay-at-home mom, which I thoroughly enjoyed and loved, 2 daughters. And 8 years ago, I went through a divorce, and, it really turned out to be a very, traumatic and contentious experience that I went through. And unfortunately, no, I don't think anybody really has an expectation of, what divorce is gonna be like, right? I mean, we don't prepare for that. We have all hopes that, everything's gonna work out when we get married. And when divorce happens, it kinda throws us. So that was the case with me. My situation was such that it became so contentious that there was no communication. My ex-husband cut off all communication as soon as I filed. We um, we were cut off financially for about 3 months with no money, me and my daughters, and just a whole slew of really difficult things that ensued from there. And the process went on for about 2 years. And what I realized kind of after I was coming through it, not really like in the emotional turmoil and confusion of it all, because one of the problems with divorce is that it affects every single part of your life. It's not just about the marriage breaking up or the family breaking up, it's about many times having to change your residence and where you live. It involves changes in your finances. It moves you from a position of where you are sort of a couple and doing a lot of things together and have joint resources and joint different parts of your life that are tied together, and so all of this unravels kind of at the same time. And then depending on your lifestyle, there may be some real changes in your lifestyle and how you live and what you may need to do going forward. So that's one of the reasons that people have so much difficulty with divorce, because it kind of hits every single aspect of your life. And in my case, I was no different than most people out there going through divorce, but I started to realize towards the end that there was a lot of missing pieces throughout the divorce because I wasn't aware and I didn't know what I didn't know. And, while lawyers are there to help be your advocate with the court system and negotiating on your behalf with the other attorney, a lot of times the the way you're going through this divorce is not all encompassing for the different areas of your life that you need help. So for example, I never really worked with an accountant during my divorce, when most people will attest that divorce is all about, for the most part, finances. And there was a lot of things I realized and all the mistakes I made, that when I was going through my own kind of hell, I was trying to just keep myself together. And I said, I can't be the only person that has had such a difficult time with this. I'm pretty smart. I have a business background, but it all kind of went to the wayside when I was dealing with the emotional turmoil of it and the financial, up and down. So I thought at that time, gee, I think there's something here for me to maybe be able to help other people when I kind of come through this storm. And that's pretty much what happened. I couldn't really go back into what I was doing before I had kids because it required a lot of traveling and being away. And in my situation, I went from being a stay-at-home mom who didn't work outside the home to now being a sole parent because my ex-husband was not involved at all now. in any kind of way with my children. So I said, well, gee, what could I do? And I realized I wanted to help people. And I thought that because of what my experience was, I might be able to really bring some really good clarity about the process as well as the emotional support for what's needed when you're going through all these changes to other people. And that's when I decided to become, go back and get certified as a life and health coach, and decided to start a practice and help people.
Wow, that's great. So it's almost like you defined it for yourself what a divorce coach is then. I mean, were you journaling and all at the time? And
Yeah, so the nitty-gritty. Okay, so that was like the overview of what I was going through, but what happened probably a year into the divorce is that I started to realize that if I didn't kind of get myself together and really, because I was suffering from, a lot of anxiety, I wasn't able to eat that much, like I was having all these challenges that were making me not be the person I was before this divorce. And now I had these two kids. My daughters at the time were 9 and 11. And I said, I'm the person they depend on. So I need to really get myself together. And it was at that point that I started to do some different techniques for myself. I wasn't thinking yet in terms of helping other people. I was just like trying to survive. So I got very, very into mindfulness, meditation. I had a lot of time one summer, the summer before we actually signed our divorce. So it was practically 2 years into the process where my kids were still involved in a summer horse riding camp that they had been doing. And because of where it was, I kind of wasn't able to go back and forth. I just kind of sat there, for the 6 hours while they were doing this, thinking, what am I going to do? During this time. And then I realized, this is really a blessing because I'm not yet working. I'm, I have all this time on my hands. This would be a great time to really delve into a learning, and so I read about 25 books that summer. I got very into meditation. I started to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole of quantum physics because I started to realize that so much of what we do and the energy that we have and the energy we put out and the vibration and frequency that we live at is what we're going to attract back. And I became very really just intrigued and fascinated with all of this and studying people like Nikola Tesla and a lot of what he did and said about vibration in the universe. And so from there I started to incorporate a lot of that into my own life. And when I transitioned into being a coach, I didn't want my coaching practice to just be about the essentials. Yes, there are many essentials that you need to know about the divorce process, and you need to have clarity. And there are, very specific issues that it helps to understand how spousal support works and child support and custody and all the different areas of your life that you want to start bringing more into focus now for your future life. But there was also that emotional slash spiritual side of this transition. And I just wanted to help people to also understand that so much of how they experience the divorce process is going to be dependent on where their mindset is and how well they can harness their own energy and consciousness to bring themselves and keep themselves in a state of higher frequency, which are basically the thoughts, feelings, and emotions of living in abundance, being in gratitude, having a higher sense that everything will be okay, as opposed to living in those lower frequencies of fear and lack and guilt, because that's what you'll attract. And so the best way to manifest what you want is to really embrace the higher frequencies.
yeah, yeah, it's almost like bringing the love back again that's supposed to have left or something.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things with divorce that that I try to impart, when you go through any kind of life transition or change, right? That's significant or traumatizing, right? It's not doesn't always have to be divorce. But when you go through that, a lot of times it really takes a toll on your self-esteem, on the way you view yourself, right? The self-talk, the messages that we're giving to ourselves. So really that first line of defense of love is really about loving, learning to love yourself and focus on yourself, because we can't really give what we don't have, and we need to replenish a lot of that self-kindness and care, so that we can eventually move forward and be able to share that. Especially if you have children, you want to be able to be there for them in spite of all the turmoil. And if you're not getting enough of that love and self-care for yourself, it's very hard to give it, and help them through this difficult process.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. So, and this is some of the benefit of a divorce coach, I guess, is there must be maybe more benefits that you could talk about. You've talked about a lot of benefits already. What are some specific issues that you help your clients work through?
Well, I think one of the things that most of us learn about divorce is usually like through TV or the movies, and it's not always accurate. That's always say that's where we get our divorce education from. And so many times we see a victim and we see we see that person and we're rooting for that person. And so a lot of times in movies and TV, they show that no matter what the circumstances are, this person's going to be victorious, and they're going to get everything they want, and the other person is going to suffer, and unfortunately that's just exactly, and that's just not the case. And so a lot of times when people are going through divorce, they have a misguided opinion that they are going to have expectations of things that they want to happen or that they think are going to happen. So typical catchphrases or things like I'm going to take him to the cleaners, or from the man's perspective, like she's going to get nothing. And fortunately or unfortunately, right? Unfortunately if you're emotionally wanting that, but fortunately for fairness, the system doesn't work like that. It's very formula based. It's based on very specific things. So what I try to do, probably one of the biggest things I try to do with my clients, and when they're either contemplating divorce or in the midst of it, is to help them manage those expectations and give them in a gentle way a little bit of a dose of reality, because a lot of times when we get that dose of reality from our attorneys, it can feel very shocking and angering and triggering. And with working with a coach who's also helping you understand the emotional stuff that you're going through and validating a lot of what you're feeling, because lawyers are not therapists or coaches. They're there to do their job and help you just get through the process. For me, what I try to do with my clients is explain to them the more of the realities of what they should expect. So if they feel triggered or they feel, we can work that through, we could talk about it, and they can, by the time they meet with their attorneys, they're a little more clear-minded about things. And being clear-minded with your attorney is important, because the more you are talking and debating and on the phone and emailing and texting, it's costing you money. And divorce lawyers today are very expensive. They're upwards of $600-700 an hour, and then some, depending on geographically where you are. So I try to also impart on my clients, like, number one, the clarity of what to expect, to manage the expectations, and to help them understand when it really makes sense to utilize the time and services of their attorney, so that they can also save money, because divorce can be very, very expensive. And you want to be able to manage your funds, because you're looking at what your life is going to be like post divorce. So it's better, to try to be as frugal as you can.
Yeah, makes sense. You must help a lot of really emotional people. It sounds like it must be a lot of upset people. I mean, it's something that's very upsetting, like you say, with turmoil and all, and the lawyers, and then those people are not going to help you with that sort of thing at all. I think, right?
Well, I think in all fairness, I think, divorce lawyers, at least good, caring ones and ethical ones, they want to. I think they genuinely have, a care and concern about their clients. But the problem is that they're there to practice law and they're there to help negotiate on your behalf and represent you, in the court system. And so their time is spent doing that. It's not, they're not there to hold your hand as much as you might need, even though they may want to, or so. I think what I do is actually complements what the lawyers are doing, because I'm helping them as well to save time on the thing that isn't really their job, where they're able to focus on what they do and the legal aspects. And then they know that their client also has some support to work through some of these, the emotions. And a lot of it is also just about giving a client grounding, because sometimes you just need a calm voice and somebody who can also empathize with what you're going through, to let you kind of express it, and then be able to help reframe some of those emotions and those feelings into a way that's going to be beneficial. So I'll give you an example. If somebody is just, starting to go through divorce, and everything's starting to pile up and they're feeling very overwhelmed, what I try to do is, number one, ground them a little bit with some very helpful techniques that might help them with, stress management, right? Teach them a little bit about how to breathe, maybe do a little mindfulness, whatever will help them to kind of bring everything down. And then on the more cerebral side, I then try to get them focused on goals, because, we need to be very clear about what our life vision is and where we want to be, and what we want to have happen after divorce, right? Because that's a finite amount of time, hopefully. And so, with the focus being more on your goals and what action steps you might have to take to get there, that can really help to keep blinders on when, stuff is happening all over. And of course, there's a lot of times that you can get triggered, whether it's because your lawyer told you something, or the judge decided something, or your ex-spouse. There's contention uh, with all different aspects, whether it's, asset distribution, whether it's children. I mean, the list goes on. So if a person is, and that goes for any, area of life, if you're very clear about your goals and you know where the end destination is, you're more inclined to say, you know what, I'm not going to take the bait here, or I'm not going to expend a lot of energy there. Is doing that going to serve the end result that I'm looking for? And sometimes it is. Sometimes you get triggered, and it's you come by it honestly, and it's a warning for you to kind of, um, fight for yourself, or, stand your ground about something. But in many cases, especially during divorce, where emotions are, going so high, getting that grounding and focusing on the goals, you often realize, you know what, it's probably not going to matter. This is really not going to matter in the long run. So why should I spend a lot of energy or involve my lawyer, her lawyer, his lawyer, in this whole thing that's not going to really, make a difference in the end.
Yeah, and so many times it makes you feel a lot better if the intellectual mind knows what to do and has busy work to take care of. Then the emotions kind of take care of themselves a little bit when you're productive and involved in something that's growing and building, rather than getting sucked into the negativity.
Yeah, and it's really funny that you say that, Carl, because so many times during, a very high emotional state, any emotional state that, something we go through, those lines get very blurred. Your intellect gets very influenced by your emotion, and so that's where a coach is very helpful, because they someone who is there to see it a little more objectively, but also can empathize with what you're going through, is able to allow that clarity to come through and express. I tell all my clients, one of the most important things that you need to do is you also need to be with the kindness of yourself. You need to really acknowledge, it's like, not taking bait or not falling into negativity doesn't mean you're not acknowledging what's happening. You're not burying it. You're not pushing it down. You're acknowledging it. And sometimes with the acknowledgement of what's really behind what's triggering you, once you kind of, get in touch with that, that can sort of release it and allow you to, let go of it, and again, keep your eye on what the end result is. And, people need that during those times of transition.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So after your own experience, then I guess you helped a lot of other people through this, and so you've been able to kind of systematize your help a little bit into a proprietary method. I guess I was reading about your vibe method. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So what, again, as I told you, I became very, very involved in this idea, and passionate about living in a high vibration, and always keeping that sense of high frequency, right? Love, abundance, joy, gratitude. So I put together kind of this four pillars of vibe that I work with my clients, and it's basically vibe stands for visualize inner brilliance and empowerment. So, the pillars of it, if you will, are to um, be the architect of your own mindset, manage stress for mind, body, and spiritual wellness. Number three is take charge of controlling your personal vibration. And the last is take action by setting goals and being accountable. So that is sort of integrated into all my programs. I mean, I have my main kind of my main program, if you will, is my 3-month program, whereby I break it into three very distinct steps. And the first step of the program involves getting, like I said before, getting kind of grounded. It's where you're really putting the emphasis in the very beginning back onto yourself. You're worried about so many things, and your mind is going in so many directions. So, what you want to do is you want to be able to focus on your goals, and you want to also be able to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, right? I am a certified health coach, so it's very important that you're taking care of yourself. So we look at, are you sleeping okay? Are you getting a little bit of movement? How are you eating? Are you getting enough nutrition? All of those things, because if you're not feeling well, you're not going to be able to think clearly through this very challenging process. And then in step two, we move on to a little bit more of the specifics of the divorce process. So that's where we're doing a little bit more of, like I had said before, where we're looking at things like, how does the basic process work? What can you expect? What are the norms? What are the generalities? How does, the court view this? What are the generalities in custody these days? What can you expect, and how can you be clear about it? And that process also involves, I work with a lot of professionals and experts in different areas. So that's the area where I talk about, potentially putting together a little bit of a divorce dream team, meaning not that you're going to spend thousands and thousands of dollars, but you're going to use experts that are going to help you to not only have a really good divorce agreement, right? 'Cause you're going to have to live with that for a long time, and the result of that, but also to rebuild your life, right? You may need to have a really good accountant. You may need to now take care of all your insurance needs. So you may need somebody who is an insurance expert or a wealth manager. So depending on what the person's needs are and what my client specifically is going through, we try to customize, like, how are we going to rebuild and kind of hit restart again in their life and all these different pillars of life that they have to deal with. And then in step 3, what we do is, most things are kind of, things are calming down, at least within the person. They have better coping mechanisms and stress management techniques that they're using. Then we move a little bit more into, I would say, like, where we're now looking at life and how it's gonna be post-divorce. Even though you're still in it, you're starting to put a lot of those things together. If where will you wanna live, or what does your life look like with your children? What are the routines you're getting into? We work a little bit more on, again, the idea of, a little deeper, what causes stress and how do I manage that long term. We look at vibration and gratitude. There's lots of different exercises that we do together, and lots of ways that people can start to define the new normal for themselves, so that, as the divorce is progressing, you too are also finding yourself creating a whole new life, for now and for later, and to start manifesting what it is that you want within your life, you know, going forward.
Mm, that's great. So you're not only helping them heal what's wounded or wrong, but you're also getting them off on a really great start. It sounds like for a new future.
That's the goal, that's the goal, because so many people, they get stuck in that pain and, the anger, and still having their mindset back where they were when they were married. It's a very hard thing to move out of. So, through the process, they are actively becoming more empowered, and they're realizing that, in spite of what they're going through, they have the strength and the fortitude and the resources to move to that next step. And, perhaps, um, though they don't think so, they could be creating a life even better than what they had before.
Right. Yeah. It must have seemed like the most terrible thing when it happened to you, but I bet you would say something different to yourself if you were to go back now and say, "Look at what's happened."
Yes, yes. People are very, it's such a highly charged time. You just don't think you're ever gonna get through it, and you think you're the only one, and then you start to realize, I'm not. This is pretty universal. People go when they go through divorce, pretty much most people have the same experience. When I say experience, I mean internally, and maybe not necessarily, the details of what happens externally or with their ex-partner. But, we all go through loss, we go through pain. It is very much a death experience, that happens. And so, I think the best advice I would ever give someone is to really know that there's a lot of help out there. We feel very isolated when we go through this. Some people have shame about it, or guilt, or, it depends what the circumstances of your divorce are. But even though it's a death, I always say, and you might be able to, kind of agree with this, like, a divorce is very much a death, but unlike a death where you actually lose someone permanently, people don't react to you the same way. When God forbid somebody dies in your life, they want you to slow down and take it easy and maybe take a few days off, and people kind of rally around you to help. With divorce, it's sort of like a process, that just goes on, that there's no, like, end date per se, and so you're just expected to go on with your life, and sometimes even up level that, do more. So, or do different things, right? Like, a dad who moves out is expected to do many of the things maybe the mom did, and now he has to do that when he has the children. And for a mom, she's maybe doing household things or things that she didn't have to do, while she had her husband. And just depending on, what you're taking on more sometimes and different. And so unlike a death, the mourning period, like, doesn't just happen and then you can work through it. It's like things are happening all the time, all these changes.
Yeah, it can be hard to ask for support too. I mean, it sounds like part of what you do is helping people to do that, to seek the right professional support.
Yeah, it's a big part of it, and I do wish, I had the kind of support that I was told to have certain professionals, to help me because that was part of my learning curve where, I didn't know what I didn't know. And so decisions were made and my agreement was made, but I didn't, have the accounting eye to see what the implications of this or that was. I there was just a lot of things that now working with clients, I'm able to help them put like a little plan together and a timed plan of when to sort of talk to a lot of these experts and professionals. And you may want to talk to an accountant right away, and maybe you want to, a little further into the process, you may want to start to talk to a wealth manager, because maybe it's going to be a while before you know the full disposition of where you're going to be. But again, it's all very specific to the client and where they are. But my point is that they sometimes are so involved they can't really see where they might need the help, and that's part of what I help them to do.
Nice, awesome, that's great. So, if someone wants to find out more and get in touch with you, where's the best place to find you these days?
So the best place is to go to my website, and my website is hittingtherestartbutton.com. And through my website, obviously you can, learn more about me and what I do. Um, but more importantly, if you want to set up a meeting with me, you can do that through the website, and you could set up I offer free consultations, free strategy calls, to figure out what you might need, what's right, if we're a fit together. Yeah. And you can also go on my website because I have a downloadable little booklet, which is yeah, which is called the 7-point blueprint for living a high vibe life. And that's for anyone, whether you're going through divorce or any kind of transition, or just trying to, up level your life and live a higher vibrational life.
Great, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, what are maybe some of the most important lessons that you've had working with clients, or what would you tell somebody? What advice would you give somebody who's maybe not sure what to do and kind of looking around right now?
So I would say that, well, my best client, quite honestly, are the ones that come to me when they're still contemplating divorce, because it's a lot easier to put a plan together and to, think about all the contingencies when you're not in the middle of it, and to kind of get a sense of, what could my plan be? What are some action steps? Who are some experts I should talk to? Right. So I would say if there's a contemplation going on, that's the best time to reach out to, a coach, and the best time to start putting together your plan, if you will, because once you file for divorce, we never know what's going to happen. We don't know how the other person's going to react, right? So that would be one thing. And the other thing I would say, most people assume that the very first professional you should go to in divorce is an attorney. And I would slightly beg to differ, because I think if you meet with a coach, they can actually lay out why you need all these professionals, what they can do for you, and the timing of how to do it. So, for example, I often suggest before you even meet with an attorney, you know, get clear with your accountant and understand your finances and understand what your budget might be, if what your life might look like financially if you were divorced, and are there any tax implications, all those things. And this way, when you do meet with an attorney, you are really fortified with a complete understanding, because they're going to ask you anyway, understanding of your finances and where you want to be and where you need to be, etc. So that's one thing I would say, sometimes the accountant can really prepare you for meeting with an attorney and having the most productive meeting that you can have. The other thing I tell people, and this is a little more specific, but once you do file for a divorce, you are still legally married until that divorce is finalized. And most people don't realize that for things like their health proxy or their power of attorney, that that person is still legally their spouse. So if you become incapacitated, they will still have the legal right to make decisions for you. So I always tell people once you file, it really is in your best interest to maybe meet with an estates and trust attorney to draw up those papers so that at least, divorces these days take a year, 2 years, at least you know that you're protected in that way. So off the top, those are kind of the 2 things, but a divorce coach can really help you to it's kinda like the hub of the wheel to kinda see all the different directions and then help you to create and stay focused on what exactly that vision is that you have and how to get there through the turmoil and the changes.
That's great. Yeah, it's such a critical, time too, all the life-changing, I guess, events all at once. It would be almost like having an event in every aspect of your life happen all at the same time.
Exactly, you said it exactly true. It really is.
What a good time to have a coach and someone to help steer you.
Yeah, yeah.
That's great. You do great work.
Thank you so much, and I really appreciate the opportunity to come on here and chat with you and tell your listeners about this service. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. Awesome. Well, and I hope we can, have maybe a follow-up chat, sometime soon.
That would be fantastic. And I know that, I'm really looking forward to having you as well because of the work you do, to come on my podcast as well, because I know you're doing some pretty terrific things as well, and I thank you for having your podcast and getting important messages out to your listeners.
Oh, yeah, for sure, for sure. It was great having you, Elvis. Thanks again for sharing.
Thanks so much, Karl.
All right. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye-bye.